Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating stack of sources. And what they promise is, well, it sounds almost revolutionary because it's so simple. It's basically a blueprint for making your life significantly better. But here's the kicker: without needing some kind of massive, stressful overhaul.
That's exactly right. What we've got here is an outline of 12 actions. They seem quite simple on the surface. Maybe you'd call them micro adjustments, but they have these incredibly powerful effects that build on each other. So our mission today is really to unpack these 12 steps piece by piece. And for you, listener, if you're someone who wants to learn quickly, get right to the point. This is kind of the shortcut to well-being you can actually use.
Yeah, actionable well-being. I like that.
The whole idea, the core premise we're digging into is that real lasting change. It doesn't come from these huge heroic efforts you do once. It comes from small, consistent things you do every single day. Tiny wins.
Consistent, tiny, daily wins. I love that framing because, so often you think self-improvement and your mind jumps to...
Right? Like massive life changes.
Exactly. I need to quit my job, move, run a marathon tomorrow. But these sources, they just sort of push back against that pressure entirely. They work on this much more relaxed, motivational idea. It's not about radical transformation. It's about being radically consistent with the small stuff.
Precisely.
So we're going to structure this deep dive across 4 main areas, kind of building up. And we'll start right now with the most concrete part, getting that physical foundation sorted.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to start there. Your body, your time, your basic energy levels. Because let's face it, if those things are running on empty, everything else just gets harder, doesn't it? Focus, learning, even just being patient, it all suffers.
Okay, so these first few points, they're really about setting up a morning routine, right? Something that kind of dictates how the rest of your day is going to feel, giving you that immediate sense of control, maybe momentum, mental clarity.
It's definitely about managing the day, but I think it goes a little deeper. It's about establishing control over yourself before the outside world starts controlling you. Before the emails, the notifications, all those demands flood in.
All right, so the first tip, and this one, yeah, I can see this being challenging for a lot of people, waking up a little earlier. Yeah.
It often is. But what's really smart about how the sources present this is the scale they suggest. They're not asking you to suddenly become a 5 a.m. person if you're naturally a night owl. That's usually unsustainable.
Okay, good. Because that sounds rough.
Right. No, they suggest something much smaller, a minimal shift. We're talking just 20 minutes, or maybe 30 minutes earlier than usual.
That's it. 20 or 30 minutes. That actually feels manageable.
Exactly. And the return you get on that small time investment is huge. Think about it. 20 or 30 minutes right at the start, before the day really begins. That time is completely yours. It's quiet. It's uninterrupted. There's no urgency yet. It might be the only time all day that's truly just for you.
That's a really important distinction, isn't it? The difference between your time and time demanded by others. We've all had those mornings where you roll out of bed, the phone's already lit up, and bam, you're reacting.
Yes. And that sets the whole tone. You're immediately in this chaos mode, feeling rushed, making stressed decisions. It cascades through the whole day.
So what do the sources say is the main benefit of carving out this little bit of time?
Interestingly, it's less about raw productivity, like cranking out emails early. It's more about securing that mental space. It gives you a window for clear thinking. Maybe you plan your top 3 priorities for the day. Or maybe you just sit quietly with a coffee or tea and enjoy the calm.
Just breathing room, essentially.
Precisely. And if you do use that time for a bit of proactive planning, think about the payoff. you drastically cut down on the reactive stress later on. Seriously, 20 minutes of focused planning in the quiet morning could easily save you, what, 2 hours of scrambling or feeling overwhelmed later.
That's a powerful trade-off.
It really is. It shifts your whole default setting for the day. You go from surviving the day to actively managing it. And that just makes everything feel more peaceful, more focused, naturally.
Okay, I can see that. That makes the small sacrifice, maybe hitting snooze one less time, actually seem worthwhile. It's like an investment in your own calm for the day.
An investment in emotional regulation, exactly.
Okay, so from managing time, we move to managing the body itself. And this next tip, honestly, it sounds so basic. It's almost like, really? Drink more water.
Chuckles. Yeah, it does sound incredibly simple. But the sources are unanimous on this. The plain fact is, most of us are just walking around slightly dehydrated most of the time. We don't even realize it.
Operating in a low-grade state of dehydration. That sounds about right for me sometimes.
And while it seems basic, the reason it's a deep dive insight is when you look at the effects, particularly the neurological ones. The sources break down the benefits into 3 key areas. We kind of know it helps your skin, maybe gives you a bit more energy.
Right, the usual stuff.
But the big one, especially for our listeners who are focused on learning and performance, is the third benefit. Faster brain function. Even a tiny drop in your hydration levels, like just 1 to 3% below optimal. That can measurably impact your focus, how vigilant you are, even your short-term memory.
Wow, okay, so dehydration is like this silent killer for productivity and thinking clearly. When you're trying to absorb information or make decisions, and your brain's basically running on sludge instead of water.
That's a good way to put it. You're actively slowing down your own cognitive processes.
Hmm.
And you probably don't even connect it. You just feel sluggish or foggy.
Right, you just think, oh, I need more coffee.
Exactly. And think about how that compounds over a week or a month.
Yeah.
If you're consistently just slightly dehydrated, you're consistently operating at maybe 95% of your mental capacity, maybe even less.
Okay, so how do the sources suggest we actually do this better? Because just saying drink more is easy, doing it is harder.
Yeah, and their practical suggestion is brilliant because it removes the friction, the decision-making. The advice is simple. Keep a water bottle near you, always. Desk, car bag, wherever. And don't think about gulping down huge glasses. Just take small, frequent sips. Constantly.
So it becomes less of a task like, okay, time for my water glass, and more of a background habit.
Precisely. It shifts from a scheduled event to a continuous, almost unconscious micro-habit. You're making the path of least resistance the healthy path. Have water right there, you'll sip it. So, yeah, it's not just a physical health tip. It's a direct boost to your cognitive endurance throughout the day. Guaranteed.
Okay, so time secured, body fueled with water. What's the third pillar of this physical foundation?
Movement. Getting your body moving every day. And again, just like with waking up early, the key here is that the barrier to entry is set intentionally low.
Meaning
The source is really emphasized.
this does not require a gym membership. You don't need to commit to some grueling hour-long workout session every single day, especially if that feels overwhelming. That's crucial, I think, because that big commitment is often what stops people from starting at all.
Exactly. It's that activation energy problem. If the goal feels too big, you just don't do it. So the focus here is on what they call the movement minimum.
The minimum, okay. Like what are the examples?
Super simple stuff. Things you can weave into your day, a brisk walk on your lunch break, Doing some simple stretches while you're watching TV in the evening. Hey, even just putting on a couple of songs you love and dancing around the kitchen while you make dinner.
Chuckles. Okay, I could probably manage dancing in the kitchen.
Right. It's about setting the bar so low that it feels almost impossible not to do it. Consistency over intensity.
And what are the big benefits they highlight? Obviously, there's the physical health aspect.
Yes, absolutely. Moving keeps your body healthy, helps regulate metabolism, all the good physical stuff.
Mm.
But the sources suggest the mental and emotional benefits are arguably even more immediate and impactful day to day. Well, think about stress. A short burst of movement acts like a powerful reset button for your nervous system. When you're sitting still, maybe concentrating hard or facing a deadline, your body produces stress hormones like cortisol. Tension builds up.
Yeah, you feel it in your shoulders, your neck.
Exactly. A quick 5 or 10-minute walk or a few stretches physically interrupts that stress cycle. It helps flush out the cortisol, releases endorphins, those feel-good chemicals. And this has a massive knock-on effect, especially on your evenings and sleep.
Ah, interesting connection to sleep.
Yeah, if you release some of that physical and mental tension during the day through movement, you're much more likely to sleep better at night. Deeper sleep, less restlessness. And guess what? Better sleep makes waking up those 20 minutes earlier. Tip number 1 way easier.
Ah, okay. It's all connected.
It really is. It creates this positive upward spiral. Better movement leads to better rest, which supports the early start, which gives you time for calm focus, you see. Combine that with better hydration, boosting your brain. You're setting a really solid physical baseline.
Right. So we've basically optimized the body's hardware now. We secured time, put in the right fuel, released the tension. So where do we go next?
Now we shift focus. We look at the operating system, the mind. It's about how we consciously curate what we feed our minds, our cognitive input.
We'll say curating cognitive input.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's a crucial transition. Once you've got a bit more physical energy and stability, you actually have the capacity to be more intentional about what you let into your mental space. This next section is all about conscious consumption. Recognizing that your mind is constantly taking things in, whether you're directing it or not.
Like passively scrolling versus actively choosing what you consume.
Precisely. Making deliberate choices about your mental diet.
So the first point here is about actively feeding the mind with good stuff. What does that look like in practice? It could be really simple. Reading just a few pages of an inspiring book each day. Listening to an uplifting podcast during your commute, or even just watching a short, positive video. The key is consuming content that's specifically designed to introduce good ideas, positive perspectives.
And why is this considered so important? What's the mechanism?
Well, the sources draw a really direct line, a cause and effect chain. It goes like this. Positive words and ideas help shape more positive thoughts. And those positive thoughts fundamentally change how you interpret your day, your experiences, which, over time, shapes a better life. Your brain is always looking for patterns.
Right.
And this habit basically trains it on which patterns to look for and prioritize the positive ones.
I've sometimes heard the mind compared to a garden. If you just leave it, weeds tend to take over, right? Negative thoughts, complaints, worries. They seem to grow easily.
That's a perfect analogy. They do.
To this habit, this intentional positive input, it's like actively planting flowers instead. You're deliberately choosing what grows there, overriding that sort of default negativity.
Exactly. You're leveraging a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, the RAS. It's like a filter. If you consistently feed your mind ideas about opportunity, resilience, gratitude, your RAS starts filtering your reality to notice more of those things.
And the opposite is true too, presumably. Feed it negativity.
And it filters reality to find evidence that the world is indeed negative and cynical. So even just a 5-minute dose of something positive, maybe during your commute or a coffee break, acts like a mental inoculation. It helps protect you against the negativity you might encounter later, and it steers your internal chatter in a more productive, positive direction.
Okay, so we're feeding the mind positivity. What's the next step in curating our cognitive environment?
It's about actively engaging the mind, stretching it through challenge. The tip is learn something new.
Ooh, that sounds potentially big and time-consuming. Does it have to be?
No, and that's key, just like the earlier points. The sources make it really approachable. It doesn't mean you have to enroll in a degree program tomorrow. We're talking small, actionable things,
Oh,
like
yeah.
dedicating maybe 15 minutes a day to learning a few words of a new language using an app,
Okay.
or learning a specific niche skill online, maybe related to your job, maybe a hobby. It could even be mastering a small life hack, like learning to tie a couple of really useful knots, or figuring out an advanced shortcut in a software program you use. Small things.
Gotcha. Little bits of learning. And what's the payoff for doing that?
The benefit analysis is really twofold, according to the sources. First, there's the cognitive benefit. Learning is basically the engine of neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. The brain changing itself.
Exactly. The brain's ability to reorganize, form new connections. When you constantly challenge your mind with new things, new information, new skills, you keep your cognitive abilities sharp, active. You're literally keeping your brain younger, more flexible.
Okay, that's a big one. Keeping the brain young. What's the second benefit?
The second one is psychological, and maybe a bit overlooked sometimes. It's the incredible boost it gives to your sense of self-efficacy, your confidence.
How does learning a small thing boost confidence so much?
Because there's this profound satisfaction that comes from knowing you successfully acquired a new capability, however small. Even learning that little life trick, mastering that knot, that success sends a message to your subconscious mind. Hey, I can learn. I am capable of improving.
Ah, I see. It chips away at that feeling of being stuck, maybe.
Absolutely. And think about the hurdle most of us face when starting something new. That fear of being incompetent, of looking stupid.
Yeah, the beginner's fear.
Right. And the sources integrate a really powerful little quote to counter this. Remember, every expert was once a beginner.
Hmm.
Just reminding yourself of that takes the pressure off needing to be good immediately. It reframes learning not as a test, but as this essential ongoing journey. So learning isn't just about stacking up facts. It's about consistently proving to yourself that you're resilient, capable, and always evolving. And that confidence makes tackling bigger goals, which we'll get to later, seem much less scary.
Okay. Positive input, active learning. Now we hit something very modern, very relevant, the digital environment, specifically social media.
Yes, this is a big one in today's world. The core insight here is the need to intentionally disconnect to reconnect. Basically, taking strategic breaks from social media.
Disconnect to reconnect. Why is that framed as so necessary?
Because constant connection, especially passive scrolling, takes a toll. It's a direct intervention against two major problems: cognitive overload and emotional drain. The sources clearly point out two main negative impacts of too much scrolling. First, there's just the mental fatigue. It seems passive, but scrolling involves tons of tiny, low-effort decisions, click, swipe, read, react, that add up. They make you feel genuinely tired.
Like decision fatigue, but from tiny, almost meaningless decisions.
Exactly. But the second impact is often more destructive psychologically. It's the damage done by constantly comparing your messy, complex, internal reality.
To someone else's shiny, curated highlight reel.
Precisely. Their perfect vacation photos, their career wins, their happy family moments. You're comparing your own behind-the-scenes blooper reel to everyone else's polished final cut.
Yeah, that's a recipe for feeling inadequate. A guaranteed happiness killer, as they say.
It really is. It creates this impossible standard that makes you feel like you're perpetually falling short. And, this ties into the brain's dopamine sister, too. Social media is engineered to give you these little, unpredictable hits of dopamine.
To keep you scrolling, keep you hooked.
Right. But unlike the satisfaction you get from achieving a small goal or learning something new, the dopamine from scrolling rarely leads to lasting satisfaction or real connection. Mostly, it just leads to more fatigue and that comparison anxiety.
Okay, I get the goal. Disconnect, reduce the noise, stop the comparison. But let's be real. For many people, especially professionals, being online feels like a requirement. For work, networking, staying informed.
That's a very valid point. A real-world challenge. Total avoidance isn't realistic or even desirable for everyone.
So how do the sources suggest managing that tension?
It seems the approach shifts from total abstinence to intentional usage and time doxing. If you need social media for work, fine. Go on, do the specific task you need to do, maybe schedule posts, check a specific group, and then deliberately log off. Set a timer, maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Be purposeful, not passive.
Exactly. And crucially, don't let it become your default activity for transition moments. Don't grab your phone and open an app the second you have downtime. Definitely don't do it first thing in the morning or last thing at night. Find other ways to fill those gaps, maybe with the positive reading or just a moment of quiet.
So the advice isn't necessarily quit social media, but use it like a tool, not a pacifier.
That's a great way to put it. Use it intentionally. And the sources suggest trying an experiment. A low-risk, high-reward trial. Try taking a break, maybe for a few hours in the evening, maybe a whole day on the weekend. Just see how it feels.
And what do they predict you'll feel?
Lighter, more focused, more present in your actual life. That lightness, that's the feeling of the weight of hundreds of other curated lives being lifted off your shoulders. And that space allows the positive input you've been cultivating, tip 4, to actually sink in instead of getting washed away by the next wave of comparison or digital noise.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've managed our internal landscape, our inputs. Now, are we shifting focus outward again?
Yes. The next section looks at how we engage with and manage energy from the external world. Specifically, our physical environments and our social connections.
Right, because we don't live in a vacuum. Our surroundings and the people we interact with have a huge impact.
A fundamental impact. This section acknowledges that truth. We're not just isolated minds. Our energy, our mood, our emotional state, they're constantly being influenced immediately and powerfully by where we are and who we're with.
Okay, first point in this section. Spend time in nature. This feels universally good, doesn't it? But again, the sources keep it simple.
Very simple and accessible. They stress this doesn't mean you need to plan a big camping trip or hike a mountain every week. Unless you want to, of course.
Chuckles, right?
The simple actions they suggest are things like just go outside for a few minutes, feel the air on your skin, look at the trees, notice the leaves, listen to the birds if there are any. It's about gentle engagement with the natural world, not necessarily strenuous activity.
Why is that simple act so powerful? What's the science or thinking behind it?
It taps into something quite deep in us, sometimes called biophilia, our innate, evolved need to connect with other living things and natural environments. From a psychological perspective, think about the difference in attention. When we're in a typical urban or indoor setting, our attention is constantly being pulled by demanding things, traffic, signs, screens, notifications. This requires what psychologists call directed attention.
And that takes effort. It's tiring.
Yes, it fatigues the part of your brain responsible for focus and impulse control, the prefrontal cortex. You're constantly filtering and focusing. Nature works differently. It engages what's called involuntary attention or a soft fascination. You can notice the way leaves move in the wind or the sound of water without any cognitive effort. It doesn't demand anything from you.
So your brain gets a break. It can relax while still being gently stimulated.
Precisely. It allows that hardworking prefrontal cortex to rest and replenish itself. The source material notes how this quiet power of nature calms you down, makes you feel alive again. Physiologically, it often leads to an immediate drop in stress hormones like cortisol just by shifting your environment to something less demanding, more organic. It validates that fundamental need we have to connect with something beyond concrete and screens.
Okay, from the peace of nature to the complexity of people, this next tip sounds potentially tricky. Stay away from negative people.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that can be hard. How should we interpret this? Does it mean cutting people off?
Yeah, this one definitely needs some nuance. It's probably the most socially challenging tip on the list. My reading of the sources suggests it's less about a drastic cutting everyone off mandate and more about making strategic, conscious choices about who you spend the majority of your time and energy with. It's about intentionally spending more time with people who uplift you, who energize you.
And consciously minimizing exposure to those who consistently drain you.
Exactly. Think of it as energy management rather than a harsh moral judgment on people. The key concept provided is simple but powerful. Energy is contagious.
Like catching a mood.
Very much like that. People who are consistently negative, complaining, or critical often require a lot of emotional labor from those around them. You find yourself constantly listening, trying to solve their problems, reassuring them, or just absorbing their negativity. That process uses up your own limited emotional energy reserves. It directly counteracts all the positive energy you've been trying to build with the other habits.
Okay, that makes sense in theory, but let's push on this. What if the negative person isn't someone you can easily avoid? Maybe it's a close family member or a colleague you have to work with every day on a project. You can't just stay away.
That's the crucial real-world application question. And in those cases, the strategy has to shift from avoidance to defense or boundary setting. The sources don't spell it out in extreme detail, but they imply certain tactics. First, maybe time limits. Keep necessary interactions focused, brief, and to the point. Don't get drawn into long, draining conversations if you can help it.
Keep it transactional, almost.
Sometimes, yes. Second, mental shielding. This is internal. It's about consciously deciding not to absorb their negativity. You can acknowledge what they're saying, that sounds really tough, or I hear your frustration, without taking on the emotional weight of it yourself. It's about recognizing their negativity is their issue, not something you have to fix or internalize. After acknowledging, maybe pivot the conversation back to the task at hand or find a polite way to end the interaction.
So it's about guarding your own energy reserves when total avoidance isn't an option.
Exactly. It boils down to making a deliberate choice. Prioritize relationships and interactions that are deposits into your energy bank and limit the withdrawals. It's presented not as being unkind, but as a necessary act of self-preservation for your own well-being and continued positive momentum.
Okay, managing negative energy. What about projecting positive energy? Point number 9 seems to bring it back to something very simple, very personal we can do. Smile more.
Yes, this one is brilliant because it's so immediate and has that dual effect. First, it can genuinely change your own internal state, your mood. And second, it has an immediate positive impact on the people around you. It can make someone else's day just a tiny bit better.
How does smiling change your own mood? Is it just pretending to be happy?
It's more physiological than pretending. This connects to something called the facial feedback hypothesis. The sources touch on this neurolinguistic connection. The simple physical act of contracting the muscles used for smiling, it actually sends signals back to your brain. Your brain interprets that physical action as, oh, things must be okay, or I must be feeling happy.
So the physical action influences the feeling.
Yes. Even if the smile starts off as voluntary or slightly forced, it can still trigger the release of neurochemicals like endorphins and dopamine. These are natural mood boosters and stress reducers, so you're kind of gently nudging your brain chemistry in a positive direction.
You're essentially using your face to give your brain positive feedback, a neat little biohack.
It is. And then there's the external effect. Smiling is arguably the simplest, most universal positive social signal we have. When you offer a genuine smile to someone, a cashier, a colleague, someone on the street, there's a very strong human tendency towards reciprocity.
They tend to smile back, or at least soften a little.
Exactly. It creates this tiny moment of positive social connection, a micro interaction. It costs nothing, takes no time, but it injects a little bit of positive energy into your immediate environment. This reinforces the habit of seeking positive interactions from debate, and it can actually make navigating those unavoidable negative interactions a bit easier because you're coming from a slightly better internal place yourself. It's a way of radiating the positive energy you've been carefully building up.
Okay, powerful stuff from simple actions. We've built the physical base, managed our inputs, and started engaging with external energy. Where does the final section take us?
The final section turns the focus entirely inward. It's about cultivating the mental and emotional habits, the internal toolkit that will sustain all these changes long term, make them stick.
The internal toolkit, psychological sustainability, I like that.
Yeah, because starting new habits is one thing. Keeping them going, especially when things get tough, requires these internal resources. These are the tools for resilience, for mindset, for making sure this isn't just a temporary boost, but a real shift.
Okay, first tool in the kit. Foundational, really, for overall well-being. Practice gratitude. What's the specific practice recommended?
The sources suggest something very concrete and structured, which helps make it a consistent habit. The recommendation is, every night before you go to sleep, consciously think of 3 specific things from your day that you are genuinely thankful for.
3 things. Does it matter how big or small they are?
No, and that's crucial. The sources emphasize that they can be, and often should be, small things. Maybe it was a really good cup of coffee this morning, a helpful conversation with a coworker, comfortable shoes on a long day, the fact that your internet connection was stable for an important call. It's about training your brain to consistently scan for and acknowledge the small wins, the everyday positives.
Why is this simple act of noticing good things so powerful?
Because it's a direct counter strategy to a really common human tendency called hedonic adaptation.
Hedonic adaptation. That's the thing where we just get used to good stuff really quickly.
Exactly. You get a raise, buy a new gadget, have a success, and yeah, it feels great for a bit. But very quickly, that becomes your new normal, your baseline. You start taking it for granted. Gratitude practice actively fights against that adaptation. It forces you to consciously reappreciate the good things that are already part of your baseline.
So it keeps the positive feelings alive even for ordinary things.
Yes. The sources say the transformative result is how it changes your whole perspective. It turns ordinary moments into small blessings. By deliberately ending your day searching for and acknowledging 3 positives, you are literally rewiring your brain over time. You're training it to focus more on abundance and less on scarcity or what's missing. This shifts your default mental filter away from comparison and lack, making happiness feel less dependent on big future achievements and much more accessible right here, right now.
Okay, gratitude helps us appreciate the good. What's the next internal tool?
This one is so important and probably one many of us struggle with. Be kind to yourself. Self-compassion.
Yeah. Easier said than done sometimes.
Definitely. The problem identified in the source material is almost universal. It's that habit many of us have of being our own absolute harshest critic. Relentless, unforgiving.
We say things to ourselves we would never dream of saying to a friend who made the same mistake.
Exactly. That internal hostility, that constant self-criticism, it's completely unsustainable if you're trying to build positive habits and improve your life. Think about it. If you slip up on one of these 12 tips, maybe you oversleep, or snap at someone, that harsh inner critic can jump in and completely derail your motivation for all the other habits. See? You failed. Might as well give up.
That downward spiral. So what's the solution offered? How do we practice being kind to ourselves?
The solution proposed is beautifully simple, conceptually at least. Apply the same standard of treatment to yourself that you would automatically offer to a good friend in the same situation. Speak to yourself with the same kindness, the same patience, the same understanding.
So if a friend missed a workout, you wouldn't call them lazy and useless.
Right. You'd probably say, hey, it happens. Don't beat yourself up. Maybe you were tired. You can try again tomorrow. Offer yourself that same grace. Acknowledge the slip-up. Acknowledge any disappointment, but do it with kindness, not condemnation.
Why is that kindness more effective than harsh criticism, which some people think is motivating?
Because the research is pretty clear on this. Harsh self-criticism tends to lead to feelings of shame, inadequacy, and often paralysis or giving up. It's demotivating in the long run. Self-compassion, on the other hand, involves acknowledging the reality of the failure or setback. Okay, I messed up and that feels bad, but combines it with warmth and understanding. But I'm human. Making mistakes is part of learning, and I can learn from this. It provides a psychological safety net that allows you to bounce back quicker.
And the sources add that little reassurance. You're doing better than you think.
Yes, and that's critical too. It's a reminder to acknowledge the effort you are putting in, even if it's not perfect. It validates the journey, reinforces your resilience, and helps ensure that one inevitable stumble doesn't cause a complete collapse of the whole positive system you're trying to build.
Okay, gratitude, self-compassion. What's the final piece of this internal toolkit?
The final piece is the engine for continued progress. Set small goals. This ties everything together and keeps the momentum going forward.
How does this differ from just, having goals?
It specifically addresses the challenge of big, intimidating goals. The sources point out that when a goal feels huge, like write a whole book or get fluent in a new language or save a large amount of money, the sheer size of it can be paralyzing. It triggers overwhelm, procrastination. Sometimes you don't even start because it just feels too scary.
Yeah, the mountain looks too high to climb.
Exactly. So the strategy here is brilliant in its practicality. Break that massive goal down into tiny, manageable, almost ridiculously small steps. This does two things. It minimizes the fear factor, the perceived risk, and it dramatically lowers the activation energy needed to just get started on any given day.
So instead of write a book, the goal is...
The goal for today might be write 500 words, Or even just open the document and write one paragraph. Or instead of get fluent, it's do one 15-minute language lesson on the app.
Hey.
Each step becomes a low-friction, high-probability chance for success, something you can actually do.
Making it easy to win.
Yes, but the strategy doesn't end with just setting the small goals. This is crucial. The sources emphasize the importance of the reinforcement loop. You absolutely have to acknowledge and celebrate finishing each small goal.
Celebrate, like throw a party for writing 500 words.
It doesn't have to be a party. It can be internal. A simple mental acknowledgement. Yes, I did it. I wrote my 500 words today. Awesome. Or maybe you track it. Put a check mark on the list. Give yourself a metaphorical pat on the back. The source material says, progress feels amazing, even if it's small. You need to let yourself feel that small win.
Why is that feeling, that small celebration, so important?
Because that feeling of accomplishment, however minor, triggers a release of dopamine in your brain. And dopamine is the neurochemical fuel for motivation. It tells your brain, hey, that felt good. Let's do that again tomorrow. So every small victory reinforces the behavior, making you more likely to repeat it. You're building a self-perpetuating cycle of success and motivation.
So you're not relying on sheer willpower to climb the mountain.
No, you're building a staircase, one small, achievable reinforcing step at a time. This momentum makes sure that the extra energy you got from drinking more water, tip 2, or the confidence you build from learning that new skill, tip 5, gets channeled directly into productive action. Continuous small victories.
Wow. Okay, that brings us through all 12 points. And looking back, you're right. Each one seems so simple on its own, almost common sense. But the way they connect and build on each other, that's where the power lies. It's not about complexity, it's about consistency in these simple things. Hashtag tag outro.
Absolutely. We've really dissected the anatomy of elevation today, haven't we? We started with those core physical routines, getting control of your morning time, making sure you're properly hydrated, getting that minimum movement in.
The foundation.
Then we moved into curating your mind consciously, choosing positive input, challenging yourself with learning, and managing the digital noise with social media breaks.
Right. Input and learning.
Then managing external energy, drawing calm from nature, and being strategic about the energy of the people you surround yourself with, including that simple act of smiling.
Environment and people.
And finally, we landed on that crucial internal toolkit, practicing gratitude to shift perspective, being kind to yourself to build resilience, and setting those small, achievable goals to maintain momentum.
So if there's one key takeaway for you, the listener, after hearing all this, what should it be?
I think the biggest takeaway is that real, meaningful change doesn't usually happen like a lightning strike, an overnight transformation.
Yeah, it's not sudden.
No.
Yeah.
It's a process. It happens slowly. It happens through these small, maybe even slightly boring daily choices that you repeat consistently, day after day. That's where the magic actually is.
And the good news is you don't have to implement all 12 of these perfectly starting tomorrow morning, right? That would be overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely not. The internal call to action here should feel manageable. Just start with one, or maybe two. Pick the one that feels easiest, or the one you think would make the biggest difference right now. If you can successfully implement just one, maybe it's just keeping that water bottle on your desk. That success gives you a little boost. It builds confidence, maybe frees up a little energy, which then makes tackling the next small habit feel that much easier.
It builds on itself, which leads us to maybe a final thought to leave people with. You mentioned earlier how interconnected these all are. That seems really important.
It's incredibly important and maybe the most powerful underlying idea here. These 12 tips aren't separate, isolated actions. They work together as a system. The simple nature of each tip kind of hides this profound compound effect.
Can you give an example of that compounding?
Sure. Let's say you start with tip 2, drink more water. Okay, simple enough. But because you're better hydrated, your brain works a bit faster. You feel less foggy. Tip 2 benefit. Because you think faster and clearer, maybe you find it slightly easier to focus during that 15 minutes you set aside to learn something new. Tip 5. Because you're successfully learning something new, you feel more capable and maybe less prone to endlessly scrolling social media, comparing yourself to others. Tip 6 benefit. Tip 5 benefit. And because you feel more focused and capable, setting and achieving those small daily goals, tip 12, becomes more effective and rewarding.
Wow. Okay, so improving one small thing genuinely makes the next thing easier.
Exponentially easier, potentially. It creates this positive feedback loop across your life. The small, simple steps you decide to take today won't just elevate how you feel today. They build a foundation that ensures every future step you take towards bigger goals, managing challenges, enjoying life, is taken with more energy, more focus, and more resilience than the last. It's a quiet revolution built on tiny habits.
A quiet revolution built on tiny habits. That's a perfect place to end. Thank you so much for breaking all that down for us.
My pleasure. It's powerful stuff.
It really is. And thank you all for joining us for this deep dive into making small choices that can have truly massive impacts. Take care of yourselves, maybe pick one thing to try, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.